Dead Fish Scrolls, further translations, the inside of Master Divine Be-Bop. Be-Bop was a jazz-squeezing man. He spoke in some sort of a way-out, eccentric, ancient, riddle-like language. No one ever knew if he really existed, but according to the scrolls, he was the original pre-bop, bebop, riffing master circa BC, AD, E, F, and G. He seemed to pop up every century in the pages of the scrolls, yet very little was said, and very little is translatable. His words seem to be beyond parableism, and it could take circa XYZ before we understand his masterful wisdom even. The only section of the scrolls vivid enough was his allegory on the significance of water as spirit. Yeah. He could place some in his hands and through masterful manipulations of his palm and fingers created some of the most celestial grooving music you ever heard. According to legend, he was able to transform his listeners, heal them, and inspire them. You name it, he did it. His allegory on water, we get some insight on why his music was, just had such an effect on human beings. Spirit is symbolized in water, he said, and water gives rhythm to Mother Nature, and spirit gives rhythm to the body. Ain't nowhere on this rock where water can't be found, but there's some places where you can't find earth, land, soil, or dirt. And there ain't nowhere in all the heavens where you can't find spirit, but there are places where there ain't no matter. You hanging on what I'm riffing? Now, what was I saying? Sometimes I drift. Oh, the next few pages were untranslatable. But later in the text, Be-Bop continues his allegory. Hand to water is a divine art, squeezing riffs into audible spirit, penetrating bodies, healing is all done by the divine osmosis. I learned it from my master in the back of Candy Store, BC. One day I was on pit riffing and my master said, "You ain't getting nowhere with that crap." Took me to the river and introduced me to the mystery of water squeezing, spirit healing, divine Be-Bop. And after mastering myself, I passed it on over the centuries, and my hand technique has been replaced by man-made instruments. Some who carried on the blessing were Beethoven and Louis Armstrong, Mozart, Miles, Scriabin, Charlie the Bird Parker, Bach, Coltrane, and Hendrix. All riffing masters of divine Be-Bop. That was the last line of the allegory before the pages had disintegrated from water damage. Footnote in the scrolls. That river, through ancient maps in the Dead Fish Scrolls, is believed to be modern-day Brooklyn's own Gowanus Canal. Can you imagine? Whew, go figure. The Gowanus Canal. Yep, that was a way of the ancient candy store. The Dead Fish Scrolls translations of the insight of Master Divine. Yeah, we're getting close to our time together with the revelations from the Dead Fish Scrolls and all the beautiful stuff from the way of the candy store. This was one of the most interesting guys you can imagine. He was called Bennie the Brainbuster. And this is Bennie the Brainbuster and his, it's called The Vision of Thought. Now, Bennie was a massive man, 6'6" and over 300 pounds. And he was a permanent bouncer for a nightclub in Atlantic Beach, Long Island. And although he got his Brainbuster nickname for obvious reasons, it was his intellect that I remember most, His knowledge of the workings of thought dissipated most of the fights before they even got started. I realized it just wasn't his imposing frame, which was unbelievable, but his ability at reading thoughts. And over the years, I had many late-night conversations with Bennie. As a musician, I'd be there like 4 in the morning after I played, and somewhere around 3 or 4 in the morning, like I said, we'd sit down in the empty nightclub, and Bennie gave up his bouncer face and would bottom line his gift of reading thoughts. He said, you can always know when a person is thinking, you could always know it. Let me gather myself here, because I want to remember what he said. So you can always know when a person is thinking That's right. When he's thinking, his thoughts are in his eyes, in the expression, in the movements. I watch closely the opening, closing of the eyes, looking up or down, looking out the corners of the eyes, raising or lowering or turning their heads left or right, bowing their heads, rubbing their hands, scratching their fingers, turning their thumbs, a smile, a half smile, sitting at ease or stiffly or upright, or leaning back or to one side or the other. All this shows me their vision, their line of thought. And the brainbuster said, if you ask a question and you observe it, you can know the answer from the attitude. Some nights Bennie said he was so wired from the vision of people's thoughts he couldn't sleep. So he'd read till the sun came up. And Bennie didn't read Playboy or comic books. Now, the brainbuster read all the great masters, prophets, and saints, Aquinas, Hegel, Buddha, and John. He told me one night the Hindus believe that creation is Brahma's dream, the Creator's dream, in short. And what the Creator has thought, he has made. So man makes and creates what he thinks, what comes into reality. Some brainbuster, huh? And what comes into reality is what we call happening. But what doesn't materialize, we don't really know. But it still exists in the thought world. Interesting. So Bennie felt that not only the action was evidence of the vision of thought, but that every atom of the body, every atom gave off that thought immediately. Bang. Bada bang. To think about that, that's pretty. And he said the nature of our so-called reality is that there is nothing hidden except that which one cannot see. And what you can't see is not really hidden in itself, but only from one's own eyes. To say that again. And what you can't see is not really hidden in itself, but only from one's own eyes. And that was Bennie. That was Bennie, all right. Bennie, the true brain buster. Not a fist and brute force. No. But the master of seeing the vision of thought. The master of seeing the vision of thought. Bennie the brain buster. 6'6" and over 300 pounds. Huh. That was the way of the candy store. Ciao for now.